Hi there YouTube, my name is Shavonni and reading is sexy. Well, I don't know. I don't think that the actual act of reading is sexy, but I'm in love with books. I wrote a pro-con article with a friend of mine last year for a school paper about e-readers versus traditional books, and yes, you guessed it, I wrote about traditional books. Not sure if you guessed it, but I kinda lost that one miserably. You can find it online, ironically. I've linked it in the doobly-doo. Today I'm here not quite to relive that tired argument, but to explore different facets of it. Time and time again, we've heard people pretty much making arguments in defense of the traditional book, which may or may not be a sad sign for their fate, or at least how people perceive their fate. However, I can't help but feel that we too often ignore other forms of print that are at risk due to the rising popularity of digital media. Comics, magazines, and newspapers and other types of periodicals are very quickly becoming pretty trendy in digital form. As some of you may know, one of the big components of the upcoming DC reboot is the promise of day of distribution digital releases. Although it does have a few benefits. When you want to get a new issue of Action Comics or Detective Comics or whatever, you know it's there. Pretty much any comic book fan has had that pain of going to the store, hoping to get into a new or relatively new series, looking in the singles, and only finding, to their dismay, number 2, number 3, anything but number 1. Or, whatever copy you're looking for. Digital distribution pretty much just demolishes that. Digital magazines add the appeal of being ready on the spot, and some may even argue that the idea of reading news in print is null when you consider the instant capabilities of Twitter, Tumblrs, and websites. However, these benefits aren't without their drawbacks. I mean, it may not be true for every publication, and ability can lead to sloppier sources, stories that just weren't ready to print yet. Sometimes with print, you just get the full story. Not always true, though. In my opinion, it just goes back to the book idea of the tradition and feel and reliability. However ironic it may be, I'll always read my tech magazines in print form because I like being able to whip it out whenever I'm bored. Just remind me of the gutter. I believe comics have a stronger argument for their print form. I mean, I don't really agree with, the book of it's better when you feel when you hold it. I think you can get that same gratification from a trade paperback. When you go to a convention or a small signing at your local comic book store, when you want the author, illustrator, or whoever to sign it, you hand over singles. Maybe you hand over trades, but you don't hand over an e-reader. That would be weird. No, comics have and always will be a collector's item. Ask the oldest fan. Ask me. I currently own the first issue of the Avengers and the first appearance of Iron Man. Before you ask, no, I've never read them, I've never opened them, never taken them out of their bag and board, or, in this case, their protective carbonite tombs. And by inherited, I mean that he died when I was very young and happened to be an astounding comic book collector. My grandparents are somewhat hoarders, and I guess comic book collecting runs in the family. I got lucky. Babies could pay for a year of my college, and only a year. But I doubt it'll ever come to that, because they mean a whole lot more than that. They represent a tradition of nerdiness and love for the bizarre that apparently stems from our roots. A sort of connection between people. It's kind of like when people go to their ancestors' homelands to visit their own roots. Comics show a dedication to something, which I think a lot of people don't have nowadays. They're physical. I'm not gonna throw them in a digital trash or recycle bin when I feel that they're taking up too much room on my desktop or in my files. I proudly display them on any shelves I have at any given time to show people that I cared about something and so did someone else. Maybe one day I'll have kids and they'll have caught the comic book collecting bug and I'll give them to them, and then one day they'll give them to their own children. Or maybe one day I'll die and they'll go to the highest bidder for millions of dollars. I don't really have a way of knowing what will happen. But I do know that this tradition of trading and collecting will keep comic books, at least, afloat in this constantly transforming and evolving world. I also have a few issues of Action Comics and Detective Comics signed by Greg Rucka during his amazing runs on those. Also, not to mention 52 signed by the majority of its authors, and Watchmen in its first printed trade paperback. Not the singles. My brother has a single.